There's a silent battle happening inside your mind right now, and most people don't even realize they're losing it. You think it's just thinking things through. You tell yourself you're being careful, being smart, being prepared. But what if that constant thinking is actually the thing holding you back? What if the reason you feel stuck, tired, mentally drained, isn't because life is too hard, but because your mind never stops running? Overthinking doesn't look dangerous on the surface. It feels productive. It feels like control. But in reality, it slowly steals your peace, your confidence, and your ability to take action. You replay conversations that already ended. You imagine problems that don't even exist yet. You analyze every little decision, until even the simplest choices feel overwhelming. And the worst part is, the more you think, the more trapped you become. This is where the wisdom of Stoicism changes everything. Long before the noise of social media, before modern anxiety had a name, Stoic thinkers understood something powerful. You don't suffer because of what happens to you. You suffer because of how your mind reacts to it. People like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca didn't just talk about controlling the mind. They lived it, in chaos, in pressure, in real life. And they discovered a truth most people still ignore today. You don't need to control everything. You only need to control yourself. In this video, you're going to learn 7 powerful habits rooted in Stoic philosophy that will help you finally break free from overthinking, not temporarily, but for good. These aren't complicated techniques. They're simple, practical, and brutally effective when applied. If you've ever felt stuck in your own head, if you've ever lost sleep over things you can't control, if you're tired of thinking so much and doing so little, then this might be the shift you've been looking for. Before we go deeper, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because this is where you learn how to master your mind, control your emotions, and become mentally unshakable. Now, let's begin. Studio microphone habit 1, separate what you can control from what you can't. Most people don't realize it, but overthinking is often just a desperate attempt to control things that were never in your control to begin with. You sit there replaying situations. What if I said this instead? What if they think this about me? What if everything goes wrong tomorrow? And without noticing it, your mind is trying to solve problems that don't actually belong to you. This is where one of the most powerful ideas from Stoicism comes in. The idea is simple, but life-changing. There are things you can control. And there are things you cannot. That's it. But the problem is, most people spend their entire lives focusing on the second category. You can't control how people see you. You can't control the past. You can't control every outcome, every reaction, or every opinion. Yet that's exactly where your mind goes when you start overthinking. You try to predict, to calculate, to prepare for every possible scenario. And in doing so, you exhaust yourself. Epictetus said it clearly. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, those are yours. But other people's reactions, the future, unexpected outcomes, those were never yours to control. And the moment you truly understand this, something shifts. You stop wasting energy on things that don't deserve your attention. You stop replaying conversations that are already over. You stop trying to read minds. You stop creating imaginary problems. Instead, you bring your focus back to where it actually matters. What can I do right now? What action can I take? What is within my power? That's where clarity begins. Because overthinking doesn't come from having too many problems. It comes from focusing on the wrong ones. Think about it. Every time your mind starts spiraling, ask yourself one simple question. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because thinking about it won't change it. And if the answer is yes, then stop thinking and start acting. That's the discipline most people avoid. They would rather think endlessly than take one uncomfortable step forward. But action breaks overthinking. Not more thinking. You don't need to figure everything out. You don't need perfect clarity. You don't need guarantees. You just need to focus on what is yours to control, and move. The more you practice this, the quieter your mind becomes. The less you care about things that drain you. The more energy you have for things that actually matter. This is how you begin to take your power back. Not by controlling the world, but by finally controlling yourself. Studio microphone habit 2, stop seeking certainty. One of the biggest reasons you overthink is because you're trying to be certain about everything. You want to know how things will turn out before you even begin. You want guarantees, reassurance, clarity about every possible outcome. So your mind starts working overtime. What if this fails? What if I regret this? What if something goes wrong? And before you realize it, you're stuck. Not because you don't know what to do, but because you're afraid to move without certainty. But here's the truth most people avoid. Certainty is an illusion. Life has never promised you clear answers. It has never guaranteed perfect outcomes. And it never will. Yet your mind keeps chasing it. Thinking that if you just analyze a little more, think a little deeper, you'll finally feel ready. But that moment never comes. This is something the Stoics understood deeply. Seneca once warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And that's exactly what overthinking is. You're not reacting to what's happening. You're reacting to what might happen. You're fighting shadows in your own mind. The more you try to predict every outcome, the more anxious and stuck you become. Because uncertainty isn't the problem. Your resistance to it is. Think about it. Every major decision in your life, every opportunity, every risk, every step forward, came with uncertainty. If you wait until you feel 100% sure, you'll be waiting forever. And while you're stuck thinking, life keeps moving. Opportunities pass. Chances disappear. Time goes on. Meanwhile, someone else, who feels just as unsure as you, takes action anyway, and moves forward. That's the difference. Not intelligence. Not luck. Just the willingness to act without certainty. Instead of asking, what if this goes wrong? Start asking, can I handle it if it does? That question changes everything. Because the truth is, you've handled difficult things before. You've survived uncertainty before. You've figured things out as you went. And you can do it again. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take the next step. When you stop demanding certainty, your mind relaxes. You stop trying to control the future. You stop running endless scenarios. You stop freezing yourself with what ifs. And instead, you move. Not perfectly. Not confidently every time. But consistently. And that's what breaks overthinking. Because overthinking thrives in stillness. But it dies in motion. So the next time your mind starts spiraling, trying to figure everything out, remind yourself. You don't need certainty to act. You just need courage to begin. Studio microphone habit 3, control your perception. Overthinking doesn't start with situations. It starts with how you interpret them. Two people can go through the exact same experience and walk away with completely different thoughts. One sees rejection. The other sees redirection. One sees failure. The other sees a lesson. The situation didn't change. Only the perception did. And that's where your power is. Most of the stress, anxiety, and mental noise you experience isn't coming from reality itself. It's coming from the meaning you attach to it. Something happens, and instantly your mind creates a story. They don't like me. I'm not good enough. This is going to end badly. And without questioning it, you believe it. That's how overthinking traps you. Not by what happens, but by how you interpret what happens. This is why Marcus Aurelius emphasized something powerful. You have control over your mind, not outside events. That means the moment you change how you see something, you change how you feel about it. Think about how many times you've assumed the worst, only to later realize you were completely wrong. But in that moment, it felt real. That's because your mind doesn't just observe reality. It filters it. And if you don't take control of that filter, it will default to fear, doubt, and negativity. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, how else can I see this? That one shift interrupts the spiral. Maybe that delayed response isn't rejection. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe that mistake isn't proof you're failing. Maybe it's part of getting better. Maybe that uncertainty isn't something to fear. Maybe it's a space where growth happens. This doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you stop distorting it. Because overthinking feeds on negative assumptions. It takes incomplete information and fills in the gaps with the worst possible conclusions. And the more you believe those conclusions, the deeper you fall into the cycle. But when you challenge your perception, you break that cycle. You create space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where clarity lives. That space is where calm begins. You don't need to control every situation. You don't need to eliminate every problem. You just need to stop letting your mind turn everything into a threat. Because not everything is as serious as it seems in your head. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every interpretation is true. The more you practice seeing things clearly, without exaggeration, without assumption, the quieter your mind becomes. And the less power overthinking has over you. Studio microphone habit 4, limit your thinking time. Most people think the solution to overthinking is to think better. But the truth is, the real solution is to think less. Because the problem isn't that you're thinking incorrectly. It's that you're thinking for too long. You take a simple situation, and instead of making a decision, you sit with it. You go over it once, twice, 10 times. From every possible angle. At first, it feels useful. It feels like you're gaining clarity. But after a certain point, something changes. Clarity turns into confusion. Confidence turns into doubt. And a simple decision becomes overwhelming. That's the moment overthinking takes over. Your mind doesn't know when to stop. So it keeps going, searching for a perfect answer that doesn't exist. And the longer you stay in that loop, the harder it becomes to get out. This is why you need to set a boundary. Not for the world, but for your own mind. Give yourself a specific window to think about something. It could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe even longer for bigger decisions. But once that time is up, you make a move. You decide. You act. You move forward. No more revisiting it. No more second guessing. Because endless thinking doesn't improve your decisions. It weakens them. Think about it. How many times have you felt clear about something at first, only to doubt yourself later after thinking about it too much? That's not growth. That's mental overload. Even Seneca warned against wasting energy on unnecessary mental effort. Because your mind, just like your body, can get tired. And when it does, it starts making things more complicated than they need to be. By limiting your thinking time, you protect your mental energy. You force yourself to focus on what matters. You train your mind to be decisive. And most importantly, you stop giving overthinking the space it needs to grow. This doesn't mean you become careless. It means you become efficient. You think with intention. Not endlessly. You decide, and you move on. Because the goal isn't to make perfect decisions. The goal is to stop being stuck. So the next time you catch yourself going in circles, set a limit. Decide within it. And once it's done, leave it there. No revisiting. No overanalyzing. Just forward movement. That's how you take control back from your mind. Studio microphone habit 5, take action before you feel ready. Overthinking feeds on hesitation. The longer you wait, the louder your mind becomes. At first, it's just a small doubt. Maybe I should think about this a little more. But then it grows. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not ready? What if this isn't the right time? And just like that, you stop moving. Not because you can't act, but because you're waiting to feel ready. But here's what most people don't understand. That feeling rarely comes. You don't wake up one day with complete confidence, zero fear, and perfect clarity. That's not how growth works. Confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you build through action. Every time you delay, your mind creates more reasons to stay stuck. More scenarios. More doubts. More fear. But the moment you act, something shifts. The noise starts to fade. The fear begins to shrink. And suddenly, things feel more manageable. Not because the situation changed, but because you did. This is something Marcus Aurelius lived by. He didn't wait to feel ready to lead an empire. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He acted, despite uncertainty, despite pressure, despite doubt. And that's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who move forward. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. You don't need to figure everything out before you begin. You just need to start. Send the message. Make the call. Take the first step. It won't be perfect. You might feel uncomfortable. You might even make mistakes. But that's part of the process. Because every action gives you feedback. Every step teaches you something. And with each move forward, the overthinking loses its grip. Think about it this way. When you stay still, your mind has space to wander. But when you're in motion, your focus shifts to what's real. To what's happening right now. And that's where progress lives. So instead of asking, "Am I ready?" start asking, "What's the smallest step I can take right now?" Make it simple. Make it immediate. And do it, before your mind has time to talk you out of it. Because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. But the moment you move, you break the cycle. Studio microphone habit 6, accept that not every thought deserves your attention. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing every thought that enters their mind. A thought shows up, and instantly, you engage with it. You analyze it. You question it. You follow it, wherever it leads. And before you realize it, you're deep in a spiral. But here's something most people were never taught. A thought is not a command. It's not a fact. And it's not always true. It's just a thought. Your mind produces thousands of them every single day. Some are useful. Most are noise. But when you treat all of them as important, you overwhelm yourself. You give power to things that don't deserve it. You turn random mental chatter into stress, anxiety, and confusion. This is where discipline comes in. Not the discipline to control every thought, but the discipline to ignore the ones that don't matter. Epictetus taught that it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And your thoughts are often just judgments. Automatic reactions, interpretations that haven't been questioned. So instead of diving into every thought, start observing them. Let them come, and let them go. If a thought doesn't help you, if it doesn't lead to action, if it only creates fear or doubt, you don't have to follow it. You don't have to solve it. You don't even have to respond to it. You can simply let it pass. At first, this feels strange. Because you're used to engaging with everything your mind throws at you. But with practice, something changes. You start to create space between you and your thoughts. You notice them, without becoming them. A negative idea shows up. But instead of spiraling, you recognize it and move on. That's power. Because overthinking only survives when you keep feeding it. Every time you analyze a useless thought, you give it more life. Every time you question it, you make it stronger. But when you ignore it, it fades. Not immediately, but gradually. Your mind becomes quieter, clearer, more focused. And suddenly, you're no longer controlled by every random idea that appears in your head. You choose what deserves your attention, You choose what to engage with. And that choice changes everything. Studio microphone habit 7, make peace with imperfection. At the root of overthinking is the need to get everything right. You want the perfect decision, the perfect timing, the perfect outcome. So you think, and think, and think, trying to eliminate every possible mistake. But in doing that, you create something worse than failure. You create paralysis. Because perfection doesn't exist. And the more you chase it, the more pressure you put on yourself. Every decision starts to feel heavy. Every step feels risky. Every move feels like it has too much at stake. So instead of moving forward, you stay where you are. Overanalyzing. Over-preparing. Overthinking. This is where you have to shift your mindset. Not everything you do needs to be perfect. It just needs to be done. Seneca believed that progress matters more than perfection. Because life isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about learning from them. Think about it. Every skill you've ever developed, you were bad at it first. Every confident person you admire, they've made countless mistakes behind the scenes. But they didn't stop. They didn't wait until they felt perfect. They moved, learned, adjusted, and improved. That's how growth works. But when you expect perfection, you interrupt that process. You judge yourself too quickly. You hesitate too long. You fear mistakes more than you value progress. And that's exactly what keeps you stuck. Instead of asking, what if this isn't perfect? Start asking, what can I learn from this? That question frees you. Because now, every outcome has value. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you gain experience. Either way, you move forward. And the more you move forward, the less power overthinking has over you. Because overthinking needs perfection to survive. It needs you to believe that every decision must be flawless. But once you accept that mistakes are part of the process, that belief disappears. You become lighter, more flexible, more willing to act. You stop seeing failure as something to avoid, and start seeing it as something to use. And that's when everything changes. You think less. You do more. And you grow faster. Studio microphone outro. Overthinking doesn't disappear overnight. But every time you apply these habits, you weaken its grip. You stop feeding it. You stop obeying it. You stop letting it control your life. And slowly, your mind becomes a place of clarity, instead of chaos. A place where you think with purpose. Not endlessly. If you made it this far, then you're already ahead of most people. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because this is where you learn how to master your mind, control your emotions, and become mentally unshakable. And if this video helped you, drop a comment below and share it with someone who needs it. Now take what you've learned, and start applying it. Because nothing changes, until you do.